Would it surprise you to know that the abortion industry is targeting women of color? Today we'll show you unassailable proof. The good news is that there's some amazing people at the forefront of educating the Black community. I'll speak with them in this appropriate setting, the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center here in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they'll speak about their efforts of protecting women of color and their unborn babies. Stay with us. Arnold Culbreth is the Director of Urban Outreach for Protecting Black Life, a project of Life Issues Institute. Its goal is to provide education, resources, and strategies to combat the problem of abortion in the Black community. I sat down with Arnold at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, to talk about the link between the Black pro-life movement and the Underground Railroad.
Well, just as the abolitionists of yesteryear worked hard to free the slaves from the bondage of slavery, pregnancy help centers every day, one woman at a time, one conversation at a time, are helping to prevent women from being enslaved or ensnared by abortion. But if they've been subjected to abortion, they work to help free them from that bondage that abortion brings. God says in the book of Hosea, Hosea 4 and 6, that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. One of the major reasons the Black community is being annihilated by abortion is because of lack of knowledge. I travel 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a month somewhere in the nation or nations addressing this issue. Roughly 90% of the African Americans I talk to don't know it's the leading cause of death. Most pastors say, where has this information been? Why didn't I know about this? And then the next reaction is, what can I do about it?
Catherine Davis is the founder and president of the Restoration Project. It works to inform, educate, and activate people on the impact of America's public policy and culture on Black life. As a young woman, Catherine was the victim of 2 abortions. After years of regret, she was finally able to find healing through God and by getting involved in the pro-life movement.
1987, I went to a Bible study, and this particular Tuesday, they were talking about abortion. And at the end of that teaching, I was literally paralyzed in my guilt, and I could not move. The only thing I could do was just sit there and cry. And I was trying to process through my brain, okay, can God ever forgive me for what I did? Because at that point, I couldn't forgive myself. And I have some of the most caring, wonderful pastors in the world, and they recognized immediately what was happening and what I was going through. And then Bishop Boone gave me the book, Grand Illusions, and said, read this and go do something about it. And that's when I got involved in the pro-life movement.
When did you first learn about the genocidal impact or focus of the abortion industry?
After I read Grand Illusions and got introduced to Margaret Sanger's Negro Project, I began to do research to say, well, is this working? Because in 1973, when Roe v. Wade was decided, my mom and I were talking about it, and she laughed, and she said, there's not a Black woman in America that would ever kill her baby that way, given our history. And so I wanted to see, can I still say that what my mom said, or had it changed? And I began to look at the numbers. And the more I looked at the numbers, the more that I saw that not only were we getting the abortions, but the numbers were lopsided. We are at genocide right now. In every state that reports by race, Black women are leading in the number of abortions. Whether you're talking about New York City, where more Black babies are aborted than are born alive today, for every 1,000 Black babies born there, 1,489 were aborted. Or you're talking about Virginia, where Blacks are about 12 or 13% of Virginia's population, but get about 42% of the abortions. It's genocidal, and I believe it's genocidal by design. I like to say Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers are spitting in our face and calling it rain when they say that there's no racial impetus to it. I know the difference between spit and rain. And there is a racial impetus, and it is decimating the Black community today.
When we return, we'll hear from Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. Alveda King currently serves as the Director of African American Outreach for Priests for Life. She's also a voice with the Silent No More Awareness campaign. Dr. King travels the country sharing her testimony of 2 abortions and how she found healing through God's forgiveness in the pro-life movement.
I was in bondage to fear, to secrecy, as a post-abortive woman before I was set free and healed. And that guilt and that doubt haunted me and followed me. I couldn't talk about it to people for a long time until I got that message and I was able to talk about it. And so I was in bondage until the liberty of confessing and being healed and knowing that there are many, many others who have had to do the same thing. And soon after, my message started 31 years ago. And I began to privately state and then publicly state, a woman has a right to choose what she does with her body, but the baby's not her body. Where is the lawyer for the baby? How can the dream survive if we murder the children? And that was from 1983 until today, and that message has only grown.
Do you believe that Black genocide is still alive today?
Black genocide is alive in America and around the world. Here in America, almost 1/3 of the abortions that occur are done on the wombs of African American women. And yet we're only about 13% of the population. And then if you visit countries like Africa and some of the other heavily populated nations, you find that the United Nations and America will say, we'll come in and give aid to your country, but you've got to take these carcinogenic birth control products and easy access to abortion. So we know that there is a genocidal eugenics movement that wants to decrease the population, not only of African Americans, but brown skin and black skin people.
Alveda is one of the founding members of the National Black Pro-Life Coalition, along with Arnold Culbreth and Catherine Davis. The organization's mission is to end abortion by restoring a culture of life and reestablish the foundation of family in the Black community, and it works to expose the eugenics and racist agenda of the abortion industry.
Early in the 21st century, a valiant group of African Americans began to reach out to each other. I was encouraged by Father Frank Pavone to reach out to Arnold Culbreth. He was a new leader then at the Protecting Black Life organization. We met wonderful people, Pastor Stephen Broden, Ryan Baumberger, there's so many, Catherine Davis, so many, and we began to say, we're not alone. I'm not the only one out here taking these hits, there are others. And there is such unity and such strength that comes from that unity. And we wanted to inform, educate, activate, and motivate not only the African American community, but the global community at large about the harmful impact of abortion and how African Americans were being targeted. And that unity has done things in this movement that have been astounding to us.
What is the mission of the coalition?
Our mission is to get rid of the decimation of abortion. We want to make abortion unthinkable and to unite the family, not just the African American family, but the family.
What are some of the specific programs or projects that the coalition has worked on?
The coalition worked with Father Frank Pavone and I at African American Outreach with Priests for Life for the pro-life freedom rides. And we went into the South and we took a bus and we went through communities and we had rallies at churches and we informed the community. That was so exciting. We worked with the Maya for 21 project, the National Day of Mourning project, which dealt with Kermit Gosnell and all of the things that Dr. Gosnell did, and we showed the public that this is not only happening in one isolated situation, but babies are being aborted, mothers are being harmed, mothers are dying, fathers are regretting abortions. So there are so many programs. We have a wonderful book, Life at All Costs, and many of us contributed to that book. So we have worked together and we continue to work together. Juneteenth, on the Juneteenth, the holiday that celebrates the liberty of African Americans through emancipation, we say that there are still brothers and sisters who are not free, and we work on letting the people know.
In a moment, we'll meet two members of the coalition who are utilizing the church and media industry to increase awareness of the abortion problem in the Black community. As a young boy, Ryan Baumberger was adopted into a large family that included 3 biological children and 10 adopted children. From a young age, he was taught about the value of life and human dignity. And at 13 years old, Ryan learned about a piece of his history that further strengthened these values.
You could say it wasn't exactly planned. I was born as a result of something that is so horrific and so violent. I'm the 1%, you could say, that is used to justify 100% of abortions. My biological mother had been raped, and yet she had the incredible courage to go through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy and give me life. And not only just give me life, it gave me a great life. And all I really wanted to do is to thank her. Really, I don't need to have a relationship with her, but I wanted to know how deeply grateful I am that she gave me life.
Ryan started the Radiance Foundation as an outlet to use his multimedia talents for the pro-life movement. His goal for the foundation is to be a resource for the pro-life movement by creating unified messaging that can be used by multiple groups. Ryan feels there's a significant problem in the media of choosing advocacy over accuracy, and he hopes the stories he's sharing can overcome this bias.
When I think of mainstream media today, I can't help but think of one of my childhood heroes, Frederick Douglass. And at that time, mainstream media wasn't telling the truth about slavery. And so what did he do? He went and started his own publication, the North Star, because he knew there was an injustice happening, and he, as he said, he couldn't be quiet about it. And so we have mainstream media today whose bias, I mean, I don't know, can you say bias? I mean, their complete and utter advocacy of abortion is more than transparent. And unfortunately, the public suffers from it because we don't get the truth about the abortion industry. We don't get the truth about the 56 million who have died since Roe. We don't get the truth about what abortion does to human lives, not just the unborn child, but to women and men. And that's the mainstream media's role. They're supposed to inform. They're supposed to try to be objective. And when you have, for instance, you know, the Gannett Foundation that runs USA Today or New York Times Foundation that directly donate to Planned Parenthood, you're not going to get journalism without extreme bias.
It's kind of ironic that the National Association of Black Journalists also support an organization like Planned Parenthood that was basically founded to curtail their population.
It's amazing. When you look at human history, it's perplexing to see how someone goes from a position of being the oppressed to the oppressor. And when you talk about the National Association of Black Journalists, they actually have received, if you look at Planned Parenthood's 990, I think from a year or two ago, Planned Parenthood directly donated to this journalistic association. The only one that I know of, at least on their 990s, that's indicated. There's no other journalistic association that has been indicated as receiving money directly from Planned Parenthood. It explains why you don't see any prominent journalists who are part of that association criticizing or challenging Planned Parenthood. In fact, every time you see an article from any journalists that are part of that association, it's like a free ad for Planned Parenthood. And what amazes me is how racism is seen in every institution in America by many of these journalists and many so-called black leaders, but not in the one industry that kills for a living.
Dean Nelson works to equip pro-life candidates as chairman of the board for the Frederick Douglass Foundation. He spent years serving with CareNet and helping to plant more pregnancy centers in urban communities. Like the Underground Railroad, Dean sees pregnancy centers as an integral network to reaching the Black community and getting the church involved with the fight.
One of the things that I saw with pregnancy centers was an easy way for the church, and particularly the African American church, to become engaged. At CareNet, we saw a number of organizations, organizational leaders from the black community that really saw this approach to helping women through establishing new pregnancy centers. It's encouraged them because they really see something where they can be involved in, whether it's through volunteers from their church, whether it's through educational programs that go alongside what the pregnancy centers actually do. But it has allowed people who heretofore have felt like they haven't had a place to engage to become very engaged.
What role do you think the church should play in addressing the issue of abortion in the black community?
You know, as we sit here, in this great location that highlights the civil rights movement and the struggle for equality for African Americans, I'm reminded of Martin Luther King Jr., who said that the church must be reminded that it is not the master nor the servant of the state, but it is the conscience of the state. And if the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it becomes an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority. I believe that the church has the ability to have that voice, the conscience of the nation, to speak to issues like slavery, like civil rights, but particularly this issue, which I believe is a human rights issue. It is a civil rights issue of our day.
The church is a sleeping giant on this issue, not just the black church, the Anglo church and other churches as well. But rather than lagging, the church needs to be leading. So we're working hard to reach pastors and their congregants to share critical information with them to wake them up on this issue.
What effect do you think there'd be if the pastors of all faiths really gave attention to the issue of abortion throughout America?
Well, if they did, I'm confident that we could end it. And as we speak about black ministers in particular, Margaret Sanger and her Negro Project of 1939 was key at influencing black pastors in order to infiltrate the black community. And I'm convinced that that back door that's been opened, at Pandora's box to the black community by the watchmen of yesteryear, is supposed to be closed by the watchmen of today.
Coming up, we'll learn the key to spreading awareness about the tragedy of abortion in the black community. One of the greatest challenges the National Black Pro-Life Coalition faces is educating blacks that abortion is the leading cause of death for African Americans. They believe the key to spreading awareness is education and motivating young people and the church to action.
One of the most effective strategies is education. And I encourage people around the nation, you don't have to have a title, you don't have to have a business card, you don't have to have a ministry or an organization. All of us have spheres of influence. Simply share with those in your spheres of influence what you've learned and let the truth do the rest.
The problems that we face sometimes as pro-lifers is we give knee-jerk reactions to what the pro-abortion community says. We need to just stand strong and tell the truth. It's not a fetus, it's a baby. Well, today, they don't even try to convince you anymore that it's not a baby. They tell you up front, a woman shouldn't have to be pregnant if she doesn't want to be pregnant. Well, no, we need to fix that. And we need to tell the truth about what it means to have children, what a blessing they are. We need to say what God said. And if we start doing that and stop being reactionary, what gets cemented in the hearts and minds of the people again is a regard for children. They will begin to once again believe that children are blessings, not curses. They will begin to believe what God said about blessed is the man whose quiver is full. You see, and we start saying that and we start talking about what God says, it will dispel the darkness of the lies that the abortionists tell.
I am ever the optimist. I always believe there's hope as long as there's breath and as long as there's Jesus. And so I believe as we move in towards a future of informing and educating and letting people know about the harmful impact of abortion and its byproducts, that more and more people will become aware. And so it's a big task, but since we're not alone, and since the younger generation is now joining us, I believe that we will overcome abortion.
I think that there's cause for hope, particularly with the great work of the National Black Pro-Life Coalition. It seems that our coalition is growing and growing every year, and that, you know, stats that have come out show that the African American community considers themselves to be pro-life. But I think that we need to take those stats and build on the successes that we've seen to convince people that this is a civil rights issue of our day. This is the righteousness, justice issue of our day.
Be sure to join us next week for part 2 of this powerful program. We'll hear from the Coalition about their individual efforts to increase awareness in the Black community. And we'll learn how they're using technology and groundbreaking research to combat the devastating effects of one of the greatest civil rights issues of our day. You won't want to miss it. This week I'd like to offer you the book, Life at All Costs, an anthology of voices from 21st century Black pro-life leaders. And your special copy is signed by all of today's guests. Visit our website at facinglife.tv to enter for your chance to receive one as my gift to you while supplies last. While there, check out available resources regarding today's episode and find out how you can order a copy of this 2-part episode on DVD or Blu-ray to share with others.